The inevitable on-track incident between Lando and Max is going to make things interesting. McLaren and Red Bull team bosses share their opinion on the incident, and Carlos's lack of a decision is going to cost him a seat. Do consider subscribing to the channel. Let's get straight into the latest F1 news. A furious McLaren boss, Andrea Stella, raised the example of Max Verstappen in Sao Paulo 2021 and suggested that led to his contact with Lando Norris in Austria. Stella saw his team lose out on a potential victory when Verstappen hit Norris in lap 64, sending the McLaren man out and handing the Dutchman a 10-second penalty, and said the FIA should have done more to draw a clear line on this kind of contact. Speaking after he exited McLaren's pit wall, Stella immediately raised the example of Sao Paulo 2021, in which Verstappen made contact with Lewis Hamilton in a similar fashion, but it was a move that was ultimately not investigated by race control. I see that the entire population in the world know who is responsible except for a group of people, Red Bull, Stella said via Sky F1. But the problem behind it is that if you don't address these things, honestly, they will come back. They have come back today because they were not addressed properly in the past when there were some fights with Lewis. That needed to be punished in a harsher way like this. You learn how to race in a certain way, which we can consider fair and square. There have been many episodes. The fact is that we have so much respect for Red Bull, so much respect for Max. They don't need to do this. They don't need to do this as a way to almost compromise your reputation. Why would you do that? Challenged that it was aggressive racing, akin to Michael Schumacher, who Stella worked with at Ferrari, the now McLaren boss said the stewards had already decided who was at fault. The stewards found that Max was fully to blame in this episode, he continued. So it's not about racing in a driver's way. It's about racing within the regulations, and the regulations must be enforced in a way that is effective, because when a car is out of the race as a consequence of this accident, the punishment needs to be proportionate to the outcome. And we had, before the incident, twice moving under braking, so I think it's just evident we have to enforce the way to go racing, because we want to have fun, and we want to enjoy. A fierce battle between Red Bull Racing's Max Verstappen and McLaren's Lando Norris resulted in tears as a clash ruined both drivers' races. But Christian Horner saw this coming. I think it's inevitable, how close they've been racing the last few weeks. Red Bull's Horner told PlanetF1.com and other F1 media outlets after the Austrian Grand Prix collision. You could see this building for perhaps a couple of races. Speaking about the coming together of Verstappen and Norris, Horner felt that a clash would inevitably happen this season. I think Lando was trying to make up for yesterday. You could see this building for perhaps a couple of races. At some point, there was going to be something close between the two of them. That's not to say Horner found any fault with either racer, however. Upon looking at the replay, he concluded, it looks like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, with both racing hard. A slow final pit stop and a lockup left Verstappen defending against Norris's McLaren as the final 15 laps of the race wound down. Norris made several fruitless attempts to pass Verstappen before the close action left the two drivers making contact. It's a shame, Horner concluded. Lando was already on 4 strikes. I think he was probably going to get a 5-second penalty anyway. It was a racing incident. I thought it was a bit harsh that Max got a 10-second penalty, but thankfully that didn't affect his outcome. His race had already been damaged by a puncture that he picked up. Reflecting on the weekend, Christian Horner appeared to look on the bright side, saying that, despite not getting a win, it's not been totally disastrous. On a day where neither of Verstappen's main opponents scored, we took home 10 points in the Drivers' Championship, 16 in the Constructors, Horner said. I think McLaren only gained 2 points on us. That leaves both Red Bull Racing and Verstappen comfortably leading their respective Formula One championships. But where does the clash leave Max Verstappen and Lando Norris's friendship? Horner is confident they'll make amends. Maybe they won't play paddle tomorrow, he joked. But I'm sure they'll talk about it. They're two hard racers. They'll talk about things openly. I've got no doubt about that. Horner also believes that the two men will retain respect for each other. Relationships between drivers vary up and down the grid, he said. I think ultimately there's a respect. That's the most important thing. Inevitably, friendships are put under pressure when you're competing hard. Lando Norris said he would lose a lot of respect for Max Verstappen if the Dutchman claimed he did nothing wrong in their dramatic collision. Having been battling for the lead in the previous laps, the pair came together in turn 3 of the 64th lap in a move that sent Norris out of the race and Verstappen into P5. Visibly angry after the race, Norris admitted he would lose a lot of respect for his friend Verstappen should he not concede at least some of the blame. Lando Norris reacts to Max Verstappen clash. Norris and Verstappen are known to be good friends off the track, but that relationship was always likely to be tested at some point this season, given how tight the battle for first appears to be. The first real flashpoint between the pair came in Austria as fair racing spilled over and both lost a potential victory as a result. Verstappen received a 10-second penalty as he was knocked down to P5, but it was Norris who suffered worse consequences of DNF and losing ground to the Dutchman in the title race. Speaking immediately after the race, Norris said he was looking forward to a fair battle, but ultimately that never came. "I'm disappointed, nothing more than that," he said. "Honestly, it was just a good race. I looked forward to just a fair battle, a strong fair battle, but I wouldn't say that's what it was in the end. So tough one to take, was a mistake-free race from my side and I feel like I did a good job, but I got taken out of the race." Before the incident, Norris was vocal over the radio that Verstappen was moving under braking, something outlawed in the rules, but the action ever came. "There's a rule, you're not allowed to move, and that's what he did. 3 times out of 3. 2 times I managed to avoid it, and the 3rd time he just ran into me. He ruined his race just as much as he ruined mine." Asked specifically about his friendship with Verstappen, Norris said he would lose a lot of respect if the Dutchman does not at least accept some blame. "It depends what he says. If he says he did nothing wrong, then I lose a lot of respect for that," Norris said. "If he admits to being a bit stupid and running into me and just being a bit reckless in a way, then I will lose a small amount of respect for him. But it's still a tough one to take when we're fighting for the win and trying to be fair for my side, and he just wasn't thinking about that." Matthias Lauda says Sergio Perez should not continue with Red Bull next season, such is his world of difference deficit to Max Verstappen. Although Red Bull handed Perez a new 2-year extension after the Monaco Grand Prix, the new contract has coincided with a downturn in form from the Mexican driver. While he has failed to reach the podium in the last 5 races, Max Verstappen has clinched 4 top 3 results, of which 3 were courtesy of race wins. Extending his lead at the top of the drivers' standings, Verstappen has a 71-point advantage over second-placed Lando Norris. Perez is down in 5th place, where he's 115 points behind his teammate. That deficit is expected to grow at the Red Bull Ring as Verstappen, who will line up on pole position, is the big favorite to take the victory. As for Perez, who was 0.888 slower than Verstappen in Q3, that leaves him down in 8th place on the grid. It's a gap that Lauda, the late Niki Lauda, says in any other series would see a driver lose his race seat. "The stopwatch at the end doesn't lie," the Austrian told Service TV. "In Formula 1, the best drivers on the market should drive. And at Red Bull, who have had the best car for the last 3 years, you expect to have a driver who can keep up with the number 1 driver. If he's 2 or 3 tenths behind, that's completely fine, but 1 second on such a short track is a world of difference. I was also in motorsport for a long time, certainly not as successful as Perez, but the golden rule was, if you are 1 second away from your teammate, then you can't keep it your race seat. No matter which championship you are driving in, whether DTM or Sports Car World Championship or Formula 2, if you are 1 second away from your own teammate, the place is gone next year." Perez's struggles have led to questions about whether Red Bull were too quick to re-sign him and should have rather waited to see how his season panned as a whole. That was put to team boss Christian Horner by Sky Sports after Saturday's qualifying. He replied, "Checo's position within the team, what he has contributed to the team, warranted that. But of course, there's always pressure to perform, and that is irrelevant of contracts, which we're obviously never going to go into the detail of. Checo knows it's a pressure business, and he knows the scrutiny that there is, particularly in a car that's winning a lot of races and performing with the other driver the way it is. So that's Formula 1, and that pressure just naturally exists on any teammate that is under-delivering. The media start asking questions, and it's very easy to lose your head at that. Now, what I've been impressed with Checo over the last 4 years is that whenever the pressure has really been on, and it's on at the moment, he's always been able to bounce back, and he's going to need to dig deep to do that. Helmut Marko has urged Red Bull to focus on the track and not on trivial matters, such as Christian Horner and Jos Verstappen's spat over a demo run. After their early season turmoil, which saw Verstappen SNR call for Horner to step down as team principal when he was investigated by Red Bull GmbH over allegations about his behavior, it's been quiet of late. At least it was until Verstappen SNR revealed he had withdrawn from the Legends Parade at the Red Bull Ring and blamed Horner. "How childish can you be?" he told Dutch publication Formula1.nl. "There was going to be filming, also with a drone, but Horner didn't want me to be filmed. I'm completely finished with Horner. It's like a playground here. I would have been allowed to drive in the end, but I backed out. I find this so childish of Horner, but I think it says something about him." However, the Red Bull team boss denied having any say in the demonstration run. "Look, I've been made aware that the Legends Parade is something that is organized by the circuit," he told the media, including planetf1.com. "There was no veto from my side or anything like that." But as tempers flared in Red Bull's latest off-track drama, Motorsport advisor Marco has told Horner and Verstappen to drop their trivial spat and focus on the on-track action. "We've actually decided to concentrate on the sporting side and have enough problems there to sort that out," he told Service TV. "But what I will say is that it is a private matter between Jos and Christian, and one that shouldn't really take place at all about such trivial matters as a show run. We must and will concentrate fully on the sport. We have a very strong opponent in McLaren. The McLaren at every track, with every temperature, with every type of tire, is always fast straight away. So that will be a tough thing over the season." RB CEO Peter Bayer has maintained Yuki Tsunoda's calmness on the radio has improved 1,000% in 2024, despite getting in trouble with the stewards on Saturday. Tsunoda was hit with a large fine after qualifying on Saturday at the Austrian Grand Prix, after a radio message during the session caught the attention of the stewards. Tsunoda was found to have breached Article 12.2.1K of the International Sporting Code for his radio message, earning him a fine of $40,000, half of which is suspended on condition he doesn't commit any similar infringements. The stewards explained the matter as, during Q1, when car 22, Tsunoda was queuing in the fast lane, and another car blended into the fast lane ahead of him. The driver was heard to make a statement over team radio using offensive language. Tsunoda's message was after Zhou Guanyu had merged in front of him at the end of Q1. An apologetic Tsunoda appeared before the stewards, explaining that he was not fully aware of the meaning of the words he was using, with English being his second language. Horrified to have learned the true context of what he had said, he admitted his understanding of the words were different, but acknowledged this should not be considered as an excuse. The stewards stated their appreciation for Tsunoda's honesty, but reinforced the fact the words used are offensive and wholly inappropriate, deeming his message over a platform available to the public as amounting to misconduct under the wording of the International Sporting Code. Tsunoda, who has picked up a reputation for issuing hot-headed radio messages over his 4 years in Formula One, has calmed down considerably in that area this season, coinciding with a step-up in performance that has seen him assume the mantle of the team's star performer. But Tsunoda's lapse in calm on Saturday was merely a blip, believes RB CEO Peter Bayer, who said the Japanese driver's conduct on the radio has improved dramatically this season. Asked whether he believes the punishment from the FIA will be the final underlining to Tsunoda of his need to rein in his radio antics, Bayer said he believes Tsunoda is already right there. "I sometimes have a bit of capacity on the pit wall to listen to some other drivers," he told planetf1.com in an exclusive interview. "I don't know why. I don't know if it's radio coverage very consistent and consistently being applied. We hear so many F words over a weekend, which seems to be okay now." Bayer explained he had gone straight to his driver when Tsunoda returned to the garage after qualifying, in order to make the point the use of such language isn't acceptable. "What Yuki said yesterday, I told him when I saw him when he came back. I said, 'Yuki, you don't say that,'" Bayer explained. "And he looked at me, 'Why? What do you mean?' I said, 'John Noonan, Tsunoda's physio, you're a native English speaker. Can you please explain to Yuki what he said?' He did, and Yuki was like, 'Oh no, I'm so sorry, he really did.'" Bayer reiterated the point that Tsunoda has learned to control his emotions far better behind the wheel of the car, now understanding that the mental capacity he's using when losing his temper is costing him outright lap time. "He has improved by 1,000% on that," Bayer said. "There is so little of that outrage that he had because he understood. He understood that every F is costing him a tenth. I mean, look at yesterday, we had all 20 cars within a tenth, right? Daniel Ricciardo was 15 thousandths of a second off Q3. It's so tight, and those distractions are. That costs you a tenth. And the tenth decides between P9 and P13. Yuki knows, and he's there. A contrite Tsunoda, who took to social media on Saturday evening to apologize profusely for his radio message, was knocked out in Q2 and admitted after the session he thought he had a car capable of making it into the top 10. Today, Saturday, there was the pace to go through into Q3, he said. I think I had the best car setup out of the last sessions. I wasn't able to put it all together, so it's my bad, to be honest, and definitely a shame. Carlos Sainz's Formula One options for 2025 could be narrowing, with teams that have been holding on for him to make a call on his future now assessing other routes. The Spaniard has been weighing up for weeks clear offers he has from both the Sauber Audi team and Williams for next season. But as the Ferrari driver appeared to be on the verge of making a final decision around the time of the Spanish Grand Prix, his situation became more complicated as Alpine ramped up efforts it has been making to get him on board. That comes in the wake of the arrival of former F1 team boss Flavio Briatore as an advisor to Renault CEO Luca De Meo. With him clear that Alpine should get on the front foot with its driver signings for the next couple of years so it can concentrate fully on its car. The situation prompted a pause in Sainz deciding what he wants to do, and it is understood that he asked for a further delay from Williams in making a call on his 2025 plans so he could weigh up what Alpine could offer. The French manufacturer's offer is especially intriguing, as it looks increasingly likely it will abandon its works engine program and instead switch to a customer deal for 2026. While the rules would guarantee Alpine an engine supply, with Honda having a duty to provide customer power units if required, it is understood that Briatore has set his sights on securing a deal with Mercedes, although nothing is decided on that front yet. The prospect for Sainz of driving for a manufacturer outfit with potentially a super competitive engine like Mercedes is something that has its attractions, which is why Sainz has further delayed making a call on the offers he has at Williams and Audi. But the latest indecision, with no guarantee about what Sainz will do, is understood to have left both teams feeling that they cannot afford to wait much longer before pursuing other options so they do not end up left high and dry. While Sauber Audi is willing to hold fire for a little bit longer, it is understood that Williams has decided that it needs to get a teammate for Alex Albon sorted as soon as possible, so it has reopened negotiations with others. The team wants a race winner on board for next season, with it understood that its prime targets are Valtteri Bottas and Esteban Ocon. Both drivers are well known to Williams team principal James Vowles through working together at Mercedes, and preliminary discussions that were taking place earlier in the year before the Sainz possibility emerged have now got rolling again. It is understood that critical to Williams is having a driver who is completely committed to the project and is willing to buy into the journey the team will be on over the next few years. That is why Sainz's hesitation in committing, and the sudden pause triggered by the Alpine offer, has left the squad questioning whether the Spaniard is devoted enough to what it has planned. And while the door is not completely shut for Sainz at Williams as talks with other drivers progress, the team may now need some evidence from the Spaniard that he is going there for the right reasons if it is to push things across the line. Williams' pursuit of Bottas and Ocon is interesting because it could also trigger a domino effect elsewhere with other teams who have been interested in either driver not wanting to risk being left behind and lose their preferred candidate, so needing to get their own deals sorted quickly too. Haas is known to be chasing Ocon, while Audi's preferred alternatives in case Sainz turns it down are understood to be the Frenchman and Bottas. Speaking in Austria, Ocon suggested that the perceived notion he was all set for Haas was not correct, as there were other possibilities now for him. There are, yes, many options, but I will not comment on what priority, said Ocon, who also made clear that he too did not want to sit back and risk being left on the sidelines like in 2018. We at no cost want to live that again, for sure. It's going well at the moment. There's a lot of deep discussions going on, and it should be sorted soon, hopefully. Bottas said that he had anticipated things falling into place after the Spanish GP, with Sainz having been expected to make a call. But the situation had now changed. I was hoping there would be decisions made earlier this week, but deadlines got pushed back again, he said. However, the Finn said that there was a lot of activity going on behind the scenes to finalize things for next year. On my days off, I've been active with my management, with different teams, including this team obviously, he said. So yeah, kind of waiting for a piece to fall into a place and then it should all happen pretty quick. Asked if he had made his mind up on where he wanted to go, Bottas said, "Absolutely. I've got my priority and my order, which I can't tell you. But yeah, for me, it's pretty clear what I want." It is understood that one consideration for Sainz is not to totally lock himself down for the long term, in case a seat at a top-line seat like Red Bull becomes available over the next couple of years. However, there appears to be little chance of him getting a contract that leaves him a free agent for 2026. Sauber Audi wants a long-term commitment into its new works era, while Williams is understood to be eager to sign him down to a multi-year deal that could even run to 2028. And while there had been talk of Alpine offering him a 1+1 that would give him freedom for 2026, sources suggest this is not the case, and it is only ready to offer a firm 2-year contract. Thanks for watching the video, everyone. See you in the next one.